Hello everyone, my name is Anmoldeep and welcome to my documentary. Join us on an exciting and enchanting travel vlog as we embark on a transformative journey from Winnipeg to Saskatchewan to experience the profound beauty and spiritual richness of a traditional sweat lodge ceremony. Our adventure begins in Winnipeg, where we set off with eager anticipation for the breathtaking landscapes that await us in Saskatchewan. As we traverse the picturesque prairies and pass through charming towns, we capture the essence of Canadian heartland. We are welcomed by the gracious members of a local indigenous community who have graciously invited us to witness and participate in their sacred sweat lodge ceremony. With utmost respect, we immerse ourselves in their vibrant culture, seeking to learn, understand, and honor their ancient traditions. The vlog showcases the mesmerizing beauty of the ceremonial site. Nestled amidst serene natural surroundings, we marvel at intricate construction of a sweat lodge, a symbolic structure embodying the connection between the physical and spiritual world. So, buckle up, guys, and enjoy my documentary. I hope you guys will like it.
Yeah. Well, I had a gentleman who had parked his trailer and his what do you call those big boats? Those big pontoon boats here and here, and this is why the grass was like this. So yeah, this is my property. It goes up to. I got to watch the window. Wait for this edge.
It's really beautiful. It's amazing.
And there's just waxy Saskatoons in here, but I didn't get any this year because of the storm that blew off all the petals, the flowers, before they could do anything. So that was kind of disappointing. Well, right to the road. So I have from Yowie to the road. New things around, you know. There's plants kind of everywhere, but then you got flat areas.
So you can sleep anywhere.
Yes, ma'am.
And we work on a water septic. Septic system over here. So, but these are all Saskatoons in here. And there we go. This is it. All the blooms. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's go off onto the deck here around this corner on the deck. My little kitties are coming up. No. Well, they're not very little. My grandson's almost 3. And he's 15. And I haven't been out here much this year, but normally my grass looks like a park. Grass is like a park, everything is.
Please give us a tour.
Yeah, like so I got lots of deck.
Will be smoother than soft
And this is
serve
my
at the
view.
end of this construction
There's my
season.
view. I love my
City of
view.
Regina is sweetening your commute by investing $2.2 million to upgrade Albert Street from 3rd Avenue to 7th Avenue. Crews will be renewing the road.
So when you have to go to the washroom or come in for anything. So this is
Wow.
the cabin.
It's really amazing.
Yeah. Kitchen, the fridge, all the stuff here. So if you're only going for a pee, leave it. If you go for anything else, flush. My bedroom's there. Yeah.
They won't come to you. Well, they won't come to you if they think you're like a spirit.
That's what I understand too, like the deep consciousness of the people.
Yeah.
These sightings are based upon the person that has the lowest level of consciousness. Wherever, like we'd be sitting around, and
Yeah.
if that person would have like a real frightening experience based on something that's based in love that they just can't understand.
So, it takes a certain kind of person to really engage and understand these things, right? Because we live in like a colonial world where they're demonized. The colonial world demonizes everything, right?
Yes, but the truth
But
is,
really, but the fact is, they've been here for billions of years. Right?
yes,
These other outer entities, right? And we've only been here for 200,000, 300,000 years. That's it.
yes,
The Earth is like 4.7 billion years old, right?
yes.
So there's been a lot of other civilizations that have been here before us. That's what I feel. Right? Like there's a history to Earth that we know nothing about.
I agree with that.
Right? There's been people, there's been civilizations here that we can't even fathom that have been here. Well, because I feel that from the Earth. I feel that.
And there is slight evidence too, but it's like we're in a state of suppression from government and from all of these aspects.
Well, we don't even have to go there. We have to make conscious contact with Earth. Earth will tell us everything that we need. Yes. We don't need the government as gatekeepers to the truth because they're not. We make that conscious contact with Earth, and there's a relationship. There's forces there. There's beautiful, powerful things there. Right? And it makes for us. Right? Not everything out there is bad, right? There's some entities out there that really want us to see, that want us to do well.
I agree.
So and they can step into and out of any consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what beings like that. Some of them just come through your front door. Some of them,
Yes, I believe I saw like a strange experience today where I just saw like a person walking, had like these two luggage cases. And I'm like, that's just strange. It shouldn't be walking there.
Well, here's like the other thing that I feel. There's probably 50 or 60 different kind of species that look so similar to us.
Yeah.
That we would never know. We pass them. In fact, we probably pass them probably 4 or 5 in the past week. Didn't even know. Standing in line, wherever Costco or wherever.
It is that.
That's just a fact.
I'm calling for protections and things like that when I'm going into places, and because I don't spend a lot of time around others.
Welcome. Just welcome them.
Of course.
There's any kind of.
If anyone could welcome them, it would be trans.
Well, I am welcoming.
Absolutely. I think
here's like the
I've
other
just been
thing.
taken advantage of too many
Well, here's
times.
like the other thing to that. Like they are so far advanced than us. Then if they wanted to destroy us, they could be like that kind of thing.
Boom.
Like game, set, match, over, done.
I think
Of
they,
course.
I
Like
think
that
they
would be
see.
it, right?
Visit.
Are you filming? I'm sorry.
You can come and sit with us if you
Oh,
like.
no. You know what? I don't know what I ate, but I gotta go lay down.
Yeah, okay. You have enough blanket?
Hey?
You have enough blanket?
Shit, yes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, here, use this. Thank you. Yeah, when I was between 3 and 4, my mother and father used to go searching for me because they thought that I would get lost. And there was a forest. We were living in a forest, and this old house, it was an old log house with an earth floor. And anyway, I used to take off and I'd go out, wander around, and then I would see somebody over by the tree line north of the house. So I'd go walking that way, and then I'd meet up with grandfather at the edge of the forest, and we'd go off into the forest. And I was just a little child. I didn't know. I thought it was people, I guess, but it was the spirit. Anyway, I'd go with them, and I sat with them at the sweat lodge. I remember having the sweat lodge with them, and they used to share with me, help me to remember, I guess, getting me prepared for what I was going to come through. But I wasn't aware of that anyway. But I sat with them off and on. I remember the one that people called the Sundance, and then I went to that one with them too, and I watched Grandpa dance with the horse. And he went into the ceremonial lodge. There's things that I remember from back then that I thought I had forgotten, but I didn't really forget them because throughout the years, I guess, all the ugliness that happened when I was a child, like I went to a thing called day school. The day school was Black Robe came in, and they used to force us into these schools. And I was 5. My sisters were already in that day school, and I didn't know what it was about, but I knew my sisters were going there, and they used to hide sometimes, and they wouldn't go. They wouldn't go to the schools. And then that priest would come to the house with the RCMP, and whoever was there, my mom or my dad, they would take one of them, and they would lock them up and tell them until those kids stay in school, you're gonna stay locked up. But I didn't really remember those things back then. But this one day, they came looking for my mom or my dad. And my mom was home, and I happened to be there too. And there was a big bang at the door. And I saw my mom, and something looked strange with my mother when she heard that bang, because she just stopped what she was doing. She stood really still and stiff. And then I recognized it as she was scared. So then that bang again, this time when my mom was going towards the door, and that door came in and hit her, and she fell down. And then that black robe walked in with the police. And they saw me there, so that's when he pointed at me and he said, yeah, I have to be in school, because I was 5 years old. And they were saying that I shouldn't have to be there until I was 6, and like they said no, so I ended up in that day school when I was 5 years old. And then I saw why my sisters didn't like going to that school, because I saw my sisters get raped and molested in that school. And that was what happened to me too while I was there. And we used to wait for one another. It got to a point where we would just wait for one another while either my sister or me or whoever, one of the 3 of us, was getting molested by that black robe. Then we'd hold each other and we'd walk home. The 3 of us would hold one another. I guess we'd be crying on the way home. But we'd dry ourselves off before we got home, because we didn't want our mom to know, or our dad. But I think they were aware of it already too, but they couldn't do anything because they get locked up in jail. So they started terrorizing us. For me, anyway, it started when I was 5, and it started for my sisters a year, I think, before that. And then that went on for a while, and then I think I was 6 when finally the priest came in from the residential school at the RCMP, and some woman. They came to take my sisters. And when they took my sisters, my mother was chasing after the car that had my sisters. So that was the last time that I saw my mother, because there was another people that were there to take me and my brothers, but we ran away from them. We went and hid in a bush. And we stayed in a bush hidden. They didn't find us, so they left. And then we came back the next day to the house and found some food, and then we took off back to the bush. So we started staying in the bush. I don't know how long or how many days we hid, and then finally we got caught one day when we were sleeping in the house. I guess we started to trust ourselves when we go to the house, and we fell asleep. Because we'd go back to wait for our mom and dad or our sisters, and nobody came. I guess the RCMP took my dad. And we don't know what happened to our mother, because she went chasing after the car. So that was the end of our family, and me and my brothers ended up together in a foster home for a while. But after that, they separated us, because I used to run away and take my brothers. And they didn't like it, so they separated us. They took my 2 younger brothers and they sent them west, and they sent me east. So I was 13 when that happened. And, so I didn't see my brothers again for a few years, but I escaped from wherever they would put me, and I'd go and find my brothers and steal them. We'd run away again. We'd come back to this reserve called Dakota Teepee. That was where we were supposed to be from, and we'd go there, and we'd end up getting caught there all the time, because they knew that's where we were going. That's where our mother was. So we'd go there. But that went on anyway for... When I was 15, I started getting locked up in detention centers, because the people were saying that they couldn't find a foster home for me anymore, so they would put me in a detention center and leave me there months and months sometimes. This one time I was there for 11 months. And then I think I was 15 then. And I got out of there, because some people helped me to get out of there, because I wasn't supposed to have been in that place to begin with. I was just a runaway from foster homes because of the abuse, and all kinds of things. Sexual abuse was a big thing during those days in foster homes. And also the slavery. They used to make you do all kinds of housework and all the cleaning and that sort of thing. And if you don't do things right, they'd beat you. and they didn't care if they left marks on you. They were mean back then. But there was nobody around. There was never ever anybody around to talk to about it. Because I never really thought anybody would believe us anyway, because the people that would put us in those homes, when we tried to tell them about it, they wouldn't listen to us. Nobody listened, so there was no point in telling anyone about it. So we just had to live with it, and be quiet. And even inside the detention centers, the people that worked in there, those people were mean. They used to take us and put us in a gymnasium, and they'd bring another boy in there and they'd make us fight. If you didn't fight, they'd make that other boy fight and beat the crap out of you until you fight. And if you didn't fight, they'd beat the crap out of you and leave you on the floor and walk away. So that was the way they used to treat us in those detention centers. The boys' home was just as bad in Portage la Prairie. The guards there, the staff were mean. So all those things put me into that prison system, that I ended up in the prison system for roughly 26 to 30 years, because there was remand time also. So it would be roughly 30 years I spent in these cells, little cages. When I first went into those cages, I was 15 years old in Vaughan Street, and it was just a little cage. I used to go stand at the window all day long, looking out the window, watching people and wondering what I did wrong. Why am I here? When am I going to go home? When am I going to see my family? That's all that went through my mind during those times when I was a child. Then I ended up in the prison system, and by that time I was starting to get used to being alone. When they took me into different institutions, he came from a broken home, and they'd make it sound like it was because of my parents, but it was because of those religious people that came into our home in the RCMP that split our home apart. That's why we had a broken home, because they broke it. But they blamed my parents for it, and they beat it into our heads to make us believe that's what happened. They made us believe a lot of things that weren't true. Even though we knew it wasn't true, we were starting to believe it and starting to have ugly feelings towards our parents. But later on, I got to see what really had happened, because what they did to me throughout my lifetime. But in '79, while I was in the prison, I was sick of living, and I didn't know what to do about it, because I was thinking, like, what am I going to do when I get out of this place? Where am I going to go? I said, I don't have a home anymore. Nobody comes here to visit me. Every time I was in any kind of trouble, ever since I was a child, anytime anything happened to me, when I got molested, I would look around to see who was there to help me. When people would whip me or something, I'd look around to see if there was somebody there. There was never anybody around to help me, not once in my lifetime. But it's strange, today it seems everybody knows everything about me, yet I've never seen them or known them in my lifetime. That's the way that the system has been dividing our people ever since they've come into my home. They've been dividing them so that they'll fight among one another and point fingers at one another, just like they did when they came into our home. Now they have the entire native population doing this thing, their finger pointers. And they're hurting one another, and they don't realize that they're living the life that they say they're native, but they're white men now, every single one of them that live like the white man. In the evenings, they'll go home after work and they'll have their dinner, and then they'll watch some TV and look at their children for a few seconds and go to bed. Go to sleep, and in the morning they'll get up and they'll have breakfast, and then they'll go work for the white man again, do the same thing over and over. They're living his life. They're paying his bills. Yeah, they're slaves to the white man's way of life, because they have that system in their homes now they call chief and council. We never had elected chiefs in the days of my grandparents. They weren't elected. They earned that position where they sat. Today, these people go around paying people to go and vote for them, and they even get people to come into the reserve as a new band member so that they'll vote for them. You see it all over the place, but they lie. They're just as bad as the people that they're claiming that they don't like. They're even worse, because they're taking the lives of their own children. That's why their children are killing themselves today, because they're sick of the way that they're living their lives in their own home, because they don't have a family. Even though that their mother and father and grandparents are there, they still don't have a family, because the family has been broken. It's been broken by these religious people in the school system and everything that has anything to do with this way of life that was brought into my home. And nothing is going to change for anybody unless they turn around and start to look back and find a proper way of living life again. Because they don't remember the way of life that we had long before anybody came into our home. But I remember it real well now, because for me, when I was in that prison system, the spirit came. They came there to take me out of that place. I was doing my best to get people to come after me to take my life because I didn't want to live. I thought, while I was in there, I thought, if this is all there is for life, this is the way that my life is going to be, why be here? I don't want to be here. So I went and robbed other prisoners for their drugs, and I'd go sit in my cell and I'd start doing their drugs, waiting for them to come and take my life. I did that 5 times in the prison system, and I'm still here because the spirit protected me while I was in there. And I didn't see it at first. I didn't understand why. I made it through the times that I made it through while I was coming through that system. But they brought me out of there. And when they were doing it, I thought I was crazy off and on. I would think about it because I was hearing things, seeing things, and even going places. And I don't know how I ended up in some of the places where I went, because they would take me. They would take me to help me to see what I had inside of me. The hate, the anger, the fear, all that ugliness that was created by the system that I was living under. And I didn't understand or know what it was that was happening. I used to think I was crazy. But I ended up in the ceremonies. I ended up in a sweat lodge. When I ended up in a sweat lodge, I saw Grandpa. He was sitting across from me, the rock pit. And Grandpa was sitting across there. The door was here. And the old man that was running the lodge was sitting over here. But there was a lot of guys inside here, just packed. And I was sitting and I was watching. And I saw somebody sitting there, but I didn't think about it. That how can I see somebody in this darkness? But I saw him sitting there, and I saw what he was wearing. And then when they opened the door, I didn't see him again. I was looking there, and I was wondering what happened to him. And then when they closed the door, I saw him again. And then so I sat early, and I started watching. I was making sure that I was going to keep my eyes on him when he opened the door again. So when they opened the door again, he wasn't there. So then I started thinking about it a lot, like if I saw somebody, if it's a spirit, he has to know something. He must see a lot more than I can see or anybody else can see. And I wanted to talk to him. I needed to talk to him. So from that moment on, after that ceremony, I used to think about it. Am I crazy? I wasn't sure. But I chased after them after that. I went into sweat lodges. When I got out of the prison system in '86, I started going into the sweat lodges because the old men down in Alberta were the ones that took me into the sweat lodge where I saw the spirit the first time. And that old man knew. He knew something happened with me. And so when I got out, I ended up at a reserve called Enoch. And the old man introduced me to another guy over there. He's a Dakota person from Paul Band, they called it. His name was Mel Paul. He was an elder there. And I got called into the sweat lodge over there. And something happened to me in the sweat lodge again. And they knew it. That old man knew. He asked me, and but I didn't say nothing. I didn't want to talk about it. So I kept quiet, and then so they took me back again into another sweat lodge. And I think about 3 sweat lodges Mel took me into at his place, around his place in Duffield. And then he said to go see this other old man. He said, go visit this old man. He was telling me, and have a ceremony. So he sent me to another reserve, and I went down to Kehiwin in northern Alberta, and I went into the ceremonies over there with another old man. His name was Norbert Dribble. He passed on too. Same with Mel, passed on. But Norbert, when he took me into the ceremonies over there, things started to happen inside the sweat lodge again, and Norbert knew about it. So he told this one old man that I went down there to the ceremony with. He said, bring him. Whenever I call, he says, bring him. So this old man used to call me, and he says, I'm going out to the sweat, you coming? So I'd say, I'm getting ready. So we go to the sweat, and things would happen. Then after that, I got sent to another place to go sweat. So I started going to this other place for a while. And then I ended up another place, and the next one, the 4th one, I think it was Eric Cardinal. And I went into ceremonies with him for 3.5 years, in the sweat lodge. And I used to go out and get the lodge ready. I'd go get wood and rocks and heat the stones and take the old stones out of the sweat and put in the new stones when we're going to have the sweat. I helped them build it. And I didn't know throughout that time that I was learning all these things that they'd been bringing me through, helping me to see, helping me to clear some of the hate and the anger that I had inside, the fear of being alive, of being out here. And this is what they call a free world. I never saw anything so sick and pathetic. I thought it was bad in the prison system, but everybody out here is living under a sick system. And they found our grandchildren by those religious schools buried under the ground. And those people that did those things didn't even get punished for it. He came down here, that Pope, and somebody gave him a headdress. That's how far gone the Native people are from their spiritual belief and their culture and who they are. They're lost, they're sick, but they don't want to admit it because they don't want to know the truth. And they need to know. They need to remember who they are and where they came from. They need to remember their grandparents and their history. Because they're losing their children now. I hear about it all over the place, the children that are taking their lives out on the reserves. And they are lost for an answer. It's because they're not who they are. They're not Native people anymore. They're not following the way of life that we had. That's why they're losing their children. Because they don't know what a family is anymore. They're disconnected from their spiritual belief from the earth. They're disconnected from the earth and everything that we see because that's who we are. We're children of the earth. Every single thing that we see on this earth comes from the earth. It comes out of the earth. The earth never stops giving life. Everywhere you look, you see plants, insects, four-legged ones, winged ones. You see everything that comes from the earth, and so do we. When my ancestors and my parents passed away, they went into the earth, and it took a while for them, but they became the soil, they became the earth again. When they became the earth, they became a part of everything that we see. And that's who we are. We're children of the earth. The earth is our mother. But we don't see it that way anymore because we're lost. Or people that are recognized as elders are lost too. But a lot of them brought the ceremony this far. For that they carried it. That's a good thing. Sometimes I feel angry towards them for the way that they're carrying our belief, the spiritual belief, the way that it is. They're following one another in things that don't exist, that shouldn't. We were given what is called free will and choice in life. And the Creator didn't tell us, this is the way you have to do this, because we were given free will. If the Creator's telling us we have to do it this way, then where's our free will? Where's our choice? Creator won't take that from us. When we look after our ceremony and the things that we do it from what we have inside of us. If we're living for the public eye, then we're just going to do whatever we want and say, well, this is the way that it is. You have to do it this way. We all come into the ceremony together and we look after the ceremony together. Same people that they despise. But over the generations, 7 generations, we have some grandpas, some grandfathers that spoke of the moment that we're in now. And people call them prophecies, the things that they saw and the words that they spoke and used during that time about what we're going to see and what's going to take place during this time. But no one's paying attention because everybody's lost in this world that we're living in. Nobody pays attention to the earth or to anything anymore. For me, when I get up in the morning, I'll go out. Hopefully, it's before the sun comes up when I get to the river. I'll go down to the river and wait for the sun to come. And then in the evenings, I'll go back out again, wait to watch when it's leaving again. And I watch the direction where it comes up and where it goes down. When I go there, I watch the ones that live in the water. I talk to them. I talk to the water. I talk to the grass. I talk to the insects. I talk to the trees. I talk to everybody. Because those are my relatives now. Those are my ancestors, gave life to all that we see because Their dust and their blood and their bones and everything gave them life now too. Same with everything else. We're all the same. We're all one big family. But we're all fighting among one another because of race and color and whatever divisions that have been placed upon us. Now they place it in our country through these divisions. This was my homeland. They used to call it Dakota Territory before anybody came here. And to me, it's still Dakota Territory. We never gave our home to anybody. The people that are here were just visitors. And they raped and murdered, and they still do that to my family. And they lie and hide behind what they call religion and government and somebody they call Jesus. It's really funny because when I think about this person they call Jesus, they say died for the sins of the people. They turn that around, is the way that I see it, because when they murdered that man because of his belief, because he was a good person and he was looking for the best in everybody, and that was his desire, to see everybody happy, to have a good life, and that was what his talk was. So they murdered him because he was getting people, and people were starting to listen and follow him. So they murdered him, and then after they murdered him, they said that he died for everybody's sins. That's the funny part. He didn't die for anybody's sins. He died because of everybody's sins, because nobody spoke on his behalf and nobody defended him. So the murderers got away with that, and ever since, murderers have been getting away with their murder, the ones that are living on top of everybody else and stealing from everybody else. When we were born into this world, we came into this world pure and perfect. We didn't come in here to pay bills and to pay for living our life in a world that was free, and it still is free. But these people are taking our freedom through the things that they've been doing to our minds since we've been children. That's why they set up all these institutions they call educational system. Those schools that they put you into, they're starting to train you to live this way of life that they're living, because they're training you to become a slave to the way of life that they live and the way of life that they preach to the people through their religion and their institutions. This place that everybody's living, we call it Turtle Island. And it's divided in a way that it's called territories, and they know that. It's always been territories. Nobody gave up that right. These people just came in and started changing everything after they started to murder everybody. And that murder hasn't stopped, because when it goes back to the school grounds again, around the religious schools where they're finding the bodies of their children. Down in Winnipeg, Manitoba right now too, they have bodies of young women in old dump sites that they don't want to go and dig them out. But if it was their mother, father, sister, brother, or anybody in their family, they'd be in there digging as fast as they could and looking for somebody to blame. But because it's a native person, it doesn't matter, because we have no rights in our own home. That's the way it's been since they've come here. And those people have been doing that to us. And when you look around, you know it's the truth. Everybody knows that it's the truth. And everybody that's not from this country, they're a foreign person on this land. And they know that. The only people that are originally from here are the native people. That's my family. When things that happened a long time ago, that we were separated into 4 different directions and 4 different races of people. That was during the time they called the sacred hoop of life had been broken. That was the loss of communication with everything that we see. We lost sight of who we are and everything else, and we were divided and put into different places because we were fighting among one another, just like we are today. So we were divided in those directions, and we were given gifts. Each of us were given gifts when we were put in the direction that we were sent. The yellow man, I believe, were given the air, I think it was, and the black man were given the water, or vice versa between the two, I can't remember. And the white man were given the fire, and the native people, we were given the spiritual way of life, the belief, the knowing of where we came from and who we are. And some of us still hold that, but we have to find our way back to get that. So when you look back, you see that the white man made use of the fire, because you look at his vehicles, they run by fire. Everything that he builds has to do with the fire. He abused his gift. And the other people, we haven't lived up to ours that well either, because our spiritual belief has been left behind, and it's being replaced by a colonial idea of who we are now, because we're not who we once were a long time ago. When our ancestors walked the earth, they were a part of everything that they see. They followed the buffalo. We followed our territory, our family. When you look at Alberta has Dakota reserves over there. You look into Saskatchewan, they have Dakota reserves. Manitoba are on in a big circle, right down into South Dakota and even past South Dakota and down into Montana, part of Montana. That was Dakota territory. But during the time that they were stealing and murdering, they were moving everybody around onto different parts of the land that they thought that was worthless. That didn't have any value. So they put them on a little parcel of land, and they'd say that that's your reserve. But those things are concentration camps. That's what it is. It's not a reserve. It's a prison. And Indian Affairs, they call Indian Affairs. That's another beast that feeds off of the people that they've been raping and murdering ever since they've come into our home. They steal off of us. Same with everything else. Our chief and council, as they call them, they steal off of their people too, because they're still the same beast. They're working under the same system, because our people never had anybody voted into a chief's position. The system was that we had our women were the leaders of the community. In every community, every village, there would be a bunch of camps all around. Each camp might have been 200, 300, 400, 500, depending on how many people that were in that camp. So each one of the camps had the ladies that were the leaders, the 7 sisters. Each one of them had 7 in their camp. So when we come to our gatherings at the ceremonies or anywhere we would come and gather, and all these camps would come together, when they're going to have the council, one of the sisters will come from this camp, one will come from this camp, one will come, and till they have 7, and then they'll have their 7 in the council. And once that council is finished, the one that sat at the head, she would leave and she would go back to her home. And then one will come from another camp and fill that position. And then when that's done, this one would leave, and then just the big circle keeps going. Nobody's the head of the council. The entire community is the head of the community. Everybody's looking after one another. Back then, our home used to be really a close community. That's why the camps were always so close. Everybody knew one another. And the teepee, when you go into a teepee and you see everybody around, you're sleeping together, eating together. You have nothing to hide. So there's no finger pointing. And the children in the camp, everybody's looking over the children, because they're always out. And when the people see something positive, something that the children are doing, that the child might be doing that's impressive, and then they'll compliment that child, and they'll keep complimenting that child to build the spirit and the strength of that child's gift, because that gift is going to help the community one day. That's the way that they taught the children. Because when the people would go out hunting, maybe one of the men came back, and he came back with a lot more than everybody else, and then the people would honor that man that brought back the most. And they would have a big feast, and they would give the man his honor to come and speak on his what he brought back, what they would call his kill, his food that he brought back for the people. So when the children see that people are being honored, and they see this man that's standing there looking proud and happy, that inspires that child to have a desire to be able to be like that person too. So they aspire towards that. And that's when you start to see the gifts of the children, when they start to aspire towards the older people that are in the camp. That was our schooling. That's the way we helped one another. We looked after the gifts that we were given. We were able to see them then. Now we don't see them because we're too busy holding those little phones in front of our face, or video games. And that's what the kids have today, and that's why they're so lost too. They're sick. The world is sick right now. It's a spiritual battle that we're in. And the people don't recognize one another anymore, that we need one another. This is a time that we all need one another to come together as a family, because when we're living in a family, just like a long time ago, the gifts that people had, everybody could help one another to build a strong community. We have to find a better future for the children. So for me, that's one of the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing today, because I remember now. I remember the things that happened to me, and I remember the things that I did. The things that I did made me feel so bad about myself and so ugly inside all my life. I had a lot of hate for myself because I think it was because I never had anybody. I never ever had anybody there in my life to ever defend me. So when I would hurt people too, sometimes I would hurt them really bad. I would do things just to make them hurt and hurt, because that's all I knew and that's all I felt inside. And I didn't know any better then. Not until I had my moment to sit with the spirits, because that was what had happened to me. On my journey through the ceremonies, there were a lot of things that took place. And even then, I used to have a hard time believing that these things were happening. I used to think I was crazy. From time to time, I would take the tobacco and I would go into the ceremony. I would take cloth and sometimes food offering, and I would take them to the sweat lodge or wherever ceremony I'm going, and I would take them in, and I would ask. I'd be kind of afraid to say what I wanted to say, so I'd call the old man, the elder. I'd call him over, and I'd whisper to him. I'd tell him I'm making my offering, and I don't know how to say it. I tell him, but a lot of things had happened in the past, and I think something happened. I'm hearing things and seeing things. So I think maybe I'm crazy. I went in a few times to make those words. But some old man kind of made me feel better. He shared something. He shared a story. See, the spirit used to share stories off and on in the ceremonies in the sweat lodge. And I used to think it was the old man that was looking after the sweat lodge, and I'd ask him about it after a while. And it wasn't him. So I used to hear them off and on in the sweat lodge. Sometimes I'd hear them talking to the old man that was looking after the ceremony. So that's what I used to think in a way, because I would hear them talking in a language, and I didn't understand the language anymore, because when I was between 5 and 6, that black robe beat that out of me and my sisters. You see, before, when we were just children, until I became 5, all I knew was my language, Dakota language. That's all I knew, because that's what my parents used to speak, and we never saw any foreign people before then. So that was the language that we knew, and I'm not sure when and how it happened, but I don't remember my language anymore. I don't remember a lot of the things because of what they did. But a lot of the things are starting to, the memory is starting to open up again, because when we let go of the ugliness that had been created in our mind by the things that had happened, when we let that ugliness go, our mind begins to open up again, and we begin to see the things that we're unable to see because we're too busy thinking about the ugliness all the time, so we don't see anything else. So the spirits were helping me to find my way out of that prison system. It started back in '79 when they came there to get me. But by that time I had thought that I was a crazy person already, and I didn't have the courage to say anything to anybody about it. I kept everything to myself during that time about the things that were happening around me. I even went and picked up that book they call the Bible, and I tried to read it, but I couldn't read because I didn't have schooling. So I threw it away. Didn't believe it anyway. So I started thinking more about my grandpa, and I started thinking about a relative that's down in the States that's doing a couple of life sentences for nothing. started thinking about all the things that happened to us at home with the breaking up of my family and how they were turning the words around and saying that I came from a broken home. They're the ones that broke my home. And it started when I was 5, when they come in to start breaking up my home. And they separated us until there was nothing left. Now when I come back home looking for my brothers and sisters and my family, and they're all passed on. They're gone. I don't have any sisters or brothers left. So I never got to experience what it's like to have a mother and father and sisters and brothers, because the religious people came and took that from me. And then they come around preaching all the time about being good to do good or you're going to go to hell. And then when there's people sick and homeless out on the street, they keep their doors locked and they don't let them in, yet they're the ones that are begging for the money off of the people that they're telling the lies to about God and Jesus. I'm tired of those people in my home. The best thing for them to do is to pack up their lies and go back to their country and stay there. All they've been, since they've been here, is trouble to our people, to the earth, to the forest, to the winged ones, to the four-legged ones, to the ones that live in the water, to the water. Everything they've ever touched, they've poisoned and killed or destroyed in some way since they've been here. The earth wasn't like this here before they came. They know that. And then right now, when I go to the waters in the morning to go and talk and make my prayer by the water and put some tobacco there, I do that in the mornings. I go there and I sit and I talk to the fish. I talk to the water. I talk to everyone. The beaver come there too, and the geese and the pelicans and the eagles. All kinds of birds, and everything just seems to fill me with a good feeling when I sit there and talk to them. And I explain to them that these people that came into our home have no respect for anything. They don't have respect for themselves. They don't have respect for life. But they don't know because they're lost. They don't know what life is about. They don't know anything about freedom. And so I ask that my relatives, I ask you that you'll hear me and that you'll help me when I talk, because I'd like to talk to these people about the things that they've been doing, because nobody has a clean home here anymore. The relatives that live in the water's so filthy that the relatives are sick in the water. The water is sick. The earth is sick because of the things that they're putting on the fields. They're destroying the home of the future generations, of the winged ones and the four-legged ones, of everything that lives. They're killing it. The insects that live under the ground, they're killing it with that poison they put on the field to make the crops grow. And they're turning the earth into a dust place, full of dust. When you look around, you see dust storms these days starting to kill the earth. They have to stop, or their children are not going to have anything. They don't even think of their own children when they're doing these things. They're poisoning their children with the food that they're eating, because all that poison they're putting into the crops is coming back in the food, and they're eating it in the food. That's why they're getting cancer and sickness. And the doctors are making a killing off of it because they're just pretending to going along with the rest of the system. So everybody's a part of the system that's destroying the ones that deserve to have a decent life. We were all put here as free beings. We came in here free. We didn't come in here to pay people to live in our own home. This is not freedom. We're living among fearmongers and murderers and rapists and all these goofy people that are so sick and pathetic. We need to start our own family again, to remember the way that we used to live. See, we had the 7 sisters. That was our way. The ladies were the government. They oversaw everything that went on in the community. And because they're 7 sisters, some of the people these days, they say 7 teachings, and they call that the truth. They call that respect, honesty, and the 7 that they use for 7 teachings. Those are not, that's the names of the 7 women, the 7 sisters. That's their names: truth, honesty, respect. And that's what they serve the community. That's how the communities run, under that sort of a law, with truth and respect. That's the honesty. So nobody goes without. Whenever anything is going to be brought into the community, it has to involve the entire community. The men were the protectors of the women and the children. And we lost that somewhere along the line during the wars, because the wars caused so much confusion, hate, anger. They murdered a lot of the women that were the overseers of the community, and things got lost in the minds of the people through the fear, the forever running and struggling to survive, because they were always chasing the people down, hunting them and burning their villages and destroying their food and their home so that they would have a place to live. They tried to exterminate us, and they're still doing the same thing, but they're doing it in a different way, and people don't see it. They're being really what they think wise about it. You see, the children, they've been doing this with the children, and they're still doing it with the children. They had these, at first, foreign people coming in and taking the children away from the people in our homes. The native children, they'd come into our homes and they'd take the children away, and there's nothing they can do about it because they had the police and the entire law system to protect them. So then the native people started making complaints and saying about the system. So what they did was they took out the foreign people, and then they gave the jobs to the native people to be the ones that are looking after these foster care systems that they are running. They're still running it, but they have the native people that are doing the dirty work. They're the ones going out and taking the children. So now whenever anybody says anything, they say, well, the native people are doing taking the children away from their own people. It's just the same system, using the ones, the ignorant ones that can't see past their greed, their selfishness, and their whiteness, and the way that they see and think and feel about one another. They're finger pointers. That's what they are, because they'll point the fingers at somebody else and blame somebody for something, whatever it is that they'll make up, just so that you won't look at them. They think they're hiding, but when they're doing the finger pointing, everybody has to realize that they're the ones that they're pointing their own finger at, because that's who they are. They're sick and pathetic. And I know that because not one of them have ever saw me or have been around me in my lifetime when anything in my life has ever affected me. When I was in the courtrooms, I never saw any of them in there either. I was always there by myself with some lying lawyer that wasn't really defending me to begin with, because the system was designed to destroy the native people's belief, the spiritual belief that we have or had, because a lot of the people today, they don't have that belief. They don't have it strong enough to go and chase until they finally sit down with the spirit. And then when you make it to that point where you're able to sit with the spirit and talk, that's where you're asked the question, what you're searching for. Depending on the person too, I guess. And I'm not sure how it works with everybody, but for me, I know how it worked when I came to the point where I met with the spirit, and the first words were that there have been many who have made this journey before, grandson. What is your desire? Is it the truth or magic tricks? And I chose the truth. And my grandfather said, good. So that was the beginning of my journey and conversation with the spirit throughout the 3 winters that I sat with them. I would sit with them off and on throughout the time. And sometimes it might be once a week, depending on how I'm feeling and the questions that I wanted to ask. And I couldn't ask my questions.
These wise individuals had a profound knowledge of indigenous traditions and were the initiators of the sacred ceremony we were about to partake in, the Sweat Lodge. Ceremony is a powerful and ancient ritual that involves entering a small darkened structure made of natural material symbolizing the womb of Mother Earth. I am really excited for tomorrow. Stay tuned, guys, for more.